Hi everyone, welcome to week 4. Before we dive into what is happening this week, I just wanted to touch base with you on what's happening on campus. So if you're not familiar with the Student Activities Board, they do all kinds of things for students over the course of the semester. So if you haven't got out to do anything yet, go out and do something. Coming up on February 4th, you've got Twister at the end of the month, or closer to the 17th, I should say. So the 16th is a holiday, so don't come to school on the 16th, which is a Monday, because that is President's Day. And so on the 17th, they're going to do bingo. And bingo is a hot activity. They give away really big prizes like TVs and cool things like that. And the key is there's a line out the door. So you want to go early, get in line like at 6 o'clock to get into that if you don't mind waiting around. And go check out bingo. But anyway, you can always check out the Student Activities Board. So I just want to let you know what's happening this week. There's Mega Twister, and then there's the Gatsby coming up. So feel free to check that stuff out. Anyway, let's talk about our class for this week. This week we're moving into week 4. So after you get to the end of this week, you will be 1/4 or 25% of the way through the semester, and it is just flying by. Also this week, you're going to learn, and I have no idea what that little thing is right there in the screen, and it won't move. Oh, let me move over there. Okay. This week, you're going to be moving on with Excel Module 3, which is about large worksheets, charting, and the what-if analysis. And so up here at the top, you have the quick guide that I have for this particular module, and I just want to show you really quick a couple things from the quick guide. So if we scroll down, it's going to talk about some different things that come with this particular module, how to use the fill handle. So we have done some fill, right? You have your box with the little box in the right-hand corner, and then you drag it through empty cells and it fills. Well, there's also a different series that have been pre-built into Excel. So like time has been built in, quarters, so that's an accounting thing, dates, you can do 1, 2, numbers, there's the days of the week. There's a variety of different patterns that have been built into Excel that you can use to fill. And it's going to talk about that a little bit more. It's going to talk about the different paste options. This is just a screenshot from the book. What I want you to focus on is relative and absolute cell referencing. So in the last module, in the projects you worked on, there was a couple places where you had to edit or add a cell. And so part of that cell was already there for you. And there was a cell reference that had dollar signs around it. And then you had to complete that reference. So what that was absolute cell referencing. So anytime you see a dollar sign in a cell, that is absolute cell referencing, which just means that part of that formula goes back to one cell and that exact same cell every time. So if you had, for example, let's go down, relative cell referencing, okay? So a cell has no dollar signs in it. If you were to grab A1, if you had A1 plus B1, and you were to fill across, it would go C, D, E, F, G, and on. So if you don't put dollar signs in it, and you fill, it's going to change the pattern of the cell references as you go down. But in the case of absolute cell referencing, under the step, this is how it looks. So part of it is absolute and positive is relative. So if we had this formula and say we were to copy it or fill it down, as it fills it down, the next cell formula would be absolute cell reference of A1, because there's one part of our math that has to be that cell every time. But the B1 part is going to change. So as you fill down, it's going to go C1, D1, E1, F1, and so on. And so that's something to focus on. So you have touched a little bit unknowingly because they kind of pre-built it into the assignment in modules 1 and 2, but they didn't really explain it. This is where you're going to really learn how to do absolute cell referencing so that you can reference specific cells, and some of those cells have to stay exactly the same every time. And that's what it's talking about. And this is just some explaining of what exactly, in layman's terms, what does that mean. And here's an example out of the book just to show you the difference between absolute, relative, and mixed cell referencing. The next thing you're going to learn in this module is the if function. So you're going to start working into some of the more complex functions. Now, the if function is not a super hard one. It's just there's a particular way that it has to be done. So what I did is took some figures out of the book for you to explain it. So what it does is it's built to do, if this happens, I want you to put a number here, or I want you to put some text here or something like that. So here's an example. This is what we call the logical test. So if cell B4 is greater than or equal to the number in cell B1, okay, if it meets that criteria, then we're going to tell it the answer. It's going to be what is showing up in B20 if it's true. Okay, we want it to. We're just kind of referencing different cells. If the answer is false, then we're going to come back and have it put nothing in the cell. And so it's going to show you the different, not the different, but how to build a basic if function. The key is just to follow the instructions, and the instructions will walk you right through it. And this is just a comparison operator. So like we talked about in the last module, we had equal to, then you have your gators, right? So less than, greater than or equal to, less than or equal to, or not equal to. And those are all things that you would use in your if function. And then this is just a diagram to help you work it through. So here's an example. So if the sales revenue in one particular cell is greater than or equal to 1.250 million, so you would type in 1,250,000. If you build it to say if it said yes, then you would do another computation. And this is what we call a nested if. So the last up here, this is just a basic if function. So sales revenue is greater than or equal to 1,250,000. If we say yes, then it says, okay, we're going to give this person a $5,000 bonus. If it is not, then it's going to put a 0 in that particular cell and they don't get a bonus. But sometimes we will embed if functions within if functions, and we call them nested. And so don't panic. It's not going to be where you have to come up with all these on your own. You're going to be given the exact steps to work through that if function and to complete it based on the instructions that you're given. And as always, you can always check out my video of me walking through the project, where I will walk and demonstrate and show you how to complete an if function. Okay, so that's the quick guide. It's there if you need it, not a requirement to look at it. And then you have your usual activities. You have your SAM training and SAM exam, do them at the same time. You have Project 1A and Project 1B, and then you have an e-basket. Now, one thing I want to say about the Cengage projects, sometimes you will do something correctly, and the Cengage grader will come back and say it marks your points off and it says it's done wrong. If that's the case, it happens. It doesn't happen to everybody, and it's random. And sometimes it depends on our internet connection. Sometimes it depends on the computer. Depends on your files and different things like that. All I ask is that if you run into that and you're pretty darn sure that you did it right, or you've gone through it and you've fixed it several times and still having issues, just shoot me an email and I'll do a grade override and get your grade adjusted for the grader not catching what task it should have. Okay, and your last thing you need to work on this week is the e-basket. The e-basket is around what we're learning in this module. And so what you have is that you're going to compare transportation costs. So you're going to go research 4 gas vehicles and 4 hybrid vehicles. So on 8 vehicles in total. You're going to find the average price of gas today. So go drive by Maverick, look it up on your phone. What's the gas today, the day you're building this spreadsheet? And then you're going to assume you drive 1,250 miles. What you're going to do is open a blank workbook. There's a table that's provided for you down here. And you're going to create a workbook, and you're going to calculate the fuel costs for all these vehicles for 1 month, 6 months, and 2 years. And then you're going to apply formulas, use absolute cell referencing where you need. So for example, the distance, if you create a formula that involves the distance per month, we always want to come back to this absolute, this cell right here. This distance per month isn't going to change. If we were to fill this information down, click and drag, we don't want it to change. So we're going to put dollar signs around whatever cell reference that you use for this one. And the same thing for price of gas. And so you're going to build your spreadsheet. Then you're going to insert a basic chart, okay? And then you're going to format it, and then you're going to submit your work, and then this is the table that you need. So what I want to see is actual names of vehicles. Don't put gas 1, 2, 3, 4, hybrid 1, 2, 3, 4. Just put whatever the vehicle's name is. If I were to tell you to go buy a specific car, put the name of that car in there. And then here at the bottom, these are what your formulas are going to be, okay? So distance per month, miles per gallon, price of gas. Distance per month, miles per gallon, price of gas. Distance per month, miles per gallon, price of gas. So distance per month and price of gas, those two pieces are going to be absolute cell references. So those particular cells should have the dollar signs around them. And then here are your points. And so if we go back, let's look at some examples together. So here's an example of a former student. Bear with me for a minute, it just popped up on the wrong screen. Okay, so here's an example from a student. So here is their vehicles, and they decided to do this, turn this cell sideways to make it look cool. They had the Toyota, Subaru, Toyota, Honda, Toyota, Subaru, Toyota, Honda, and they did gas and then hybrid. And now I'm sitting here thinking, like, okay, well, they're the same names, so I don't know anything about these vehicles. Maybe they do have a gas version. Maybe they do have a hybrid. I'm not sure. But anyway, what you're going to do is build something that looks like this. Fuel cost for 1 month, fuel cost for 6 months, fuel cost for 2 years. And so in your formulas, you're going to reference the cell. So you're going to see in this cell, the fuel cost for 1 month is cell C11, absolute cell reference of C11, which is the mileage, okay, divided by C3, which is the miles per gallon, then multiplied by C12, which is the cost of gas. And then as you see, as they fill down, you're only going to see the ones that don't have cell references change, because that's part of the formula, is that we're referencing two specific cells all the time, but for the rest of the formula, we want it to change as we go down, and it's because it's relative to the cell before it. And that's what we call the relative cell reference. And so I put that out there for you so you can see how this particular student did this. And then they have their chart across the bottom. And then here's another example. Here's a student that did their gas and their hybrid. They did their formulas. And then we have, they did not have their absolute cell referencing. So sometimes students figure out how to do it without that. I would prefer that you use the cell referencing to get your answer. But if you figure out how to get the correct answer without the absolute cell referencing, I do let that slide a little bit. And then we have another one. So this one did the right cell referencing, and they have their set values down here. So this is what your eBasket looks like. I want you to stick with examples 1 and 3. Example 2 isn't the best, but it's not the worst. They just did it differently to avoid using the distance per month. So anyway, that's what's happening this week, and that's all I have for you. So I hope you have a great week. Again, if you have anything that comes up, or if you have any trouble with anything or any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. I'm here to help you. Have a great week, and I'll talk to you again soon. Take care.